Hello. I love Super Nintendo. I eat, sleep and live everything SNES. Super Nintendo. Now, once again, Wimbledon is fast approaching, and with the most famous event in all of tennis only a few days away, it seems only fair to look at a game on the Super Nintendo that represents the racket-wielding sport. Although this is the part where I would usually discuss the history of tennis and its impact on life today, in all honesty, tennis has always been a sport that has eluded me. All the running, swinging and grunting were never things that appealed, and so I would say I am far from being a tennis fan. However, Wimbledon is different. For me, Wimbledon signifies the beginning of summer. Not only that, but it is a sporting tournament that brings together people from all over the world. All society classes, all walks of life, people from everywhere come together to watch a sport being played at near perfection. In fact, at its best, Wimbledon is not even just a sporting tournament, it is a work of art. A game at Wimbledon can look as beautiful as a brush being pulled across a canvas or a bow ran across a violin. Not to mention all the really short skirts. So, with strawberries, sun and white skirts only a few days away, it seems only fair to take on the Super Nintendo a game that signifies this sport. Super Tennis is, as you may have guessed, a tennis game. Simple as. It doesn't claim to be any more or any less. The game allows you to choose a singles match, doubles match or a circuit, which is a sort of career mode where you have to work your way through a number of tournaments to become the champion. Originally released in 1991, Super Tennis is a game that you may not hear too much about. It's one of the biggest dangers with sporting games in particular is the fact that they become outdated so quickly. Granted, there are more realistic, more modern tennis games out there being released and being worked on all the time, and sports simulations in particular are ones that tend to become outdated far quicker than other types of games. It's the main reason that FIFA have to release a new football game every single year, because people just find that they get so outdated so quickly. However, to think that the life of Super Tennis is over would be foolish. After only a small amount of digging on the webtonet, I found a startling revelation. The life of Super Tennis continues in a sort of underground webtonet circuit. There are still websites devoted solely to this game, to setting up tournaments between people around the world just to play Super Tennis. Now, if you're particularly interested in this sort of thing, then here are just a few of the websites that you should check out for more information. So why is it that Super Tennis is still huge with certain groups of people? Well, let's have a look at this game and try to understand where this huge cult following has come from. As a kid, Super Tennis was one of the games that I loved, and definitely one of the games that I played the most as a child. And for me, there was one thing in particular that really made this game a cut above the rest, and that's just how fun it is. It's so fun. For a sporting simulation, Super Tennis is very liberal. Your character can run out of screen, moves fairly fluently, and can even carry on moving, swinging, and even playing the game after points have been awarded. This may not sound like anything particularly amazing, but just think about it for a second. How many football games allow you to tackle the goalkeeper before he's taken a goal kick? How many basketball games allow you to carry on dribbling the ball after the whistle's been played? Or, even better, allow you to run off screen and just decide not to play anymore? And as a child in particular, this was how I got fun out of Super Tennis. The number of times I found it hysterical to just run off screen in the middle of a doubles match and leave my partner to try and play alone. It was just funny. The amount of times I tried to hit the ball boy as he runs on to get the ball. It made hours of entertainment for a tennis game. And let's be honest, there isn't an awful lot to tennis. So to get extra enjoyment out of this game was just one thing as a kid that I thought was fantastic. Adding to the fun in Super Tennis is just how easy the game is to pick up and play. Each of the 4 face buttons performs a different kind of swing, but honestly you can play the game pretty well sticking to the B button. Other than that, the D-pad moves you, so it's just a case of stand near the ball and press B. Children and adults alike can have hours of fun at a time with such a simple control system. There are a fairly decent number of gameplay options in the game. As already discussed, you can play singles, doubles or circuit. Singles and doubles matches are very similar, although singles is singles and doubles is doubles. Apart from that one glaring difference, both match types allow you to choose between 1, 3 or 5 sets and even allow you to select which surface type you would prefer. Hard surface makes the ball bounce higher and travel the fastest. Lawn makes the ball bounce lowest and travel the slowest. And clay is somewhere in between. Circuit mode is definitely for those people looking for a challenge. In circuit mode, you select your character and then travel the world entering different tennis competitions. You can pick and choose which tournaments you enter, and you then play against other characters trying to get as far as you can. After each tournament, you are given a password to allow you to continue from where you set off. Tennis games nowadays get so bogged down by which tennis superstars do and do not appear in the game. Well, Super Tennis, in that respect, is a breath of fresh air. How many tennis fans remember the high years of Hero or Nancy? Now, although some tennis fans may argue that the inclusion of real tennis players might have been nice, I think the rest of us agree that Steve and Colette are much preferred. Now, granted, some of these characters look pretty scary, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the idea is to scare their opponents into submission. Well, as it was, even as a kid, I always wanted to play as Nancy, because she was hot and little has changed now. So, anyone daring to challenge the Super Nintendo Fanboy and Nancy to a Super Tennis tournament are more than welcome. How is that for an open challenge? Now, next point. Just for a second, have a listen to this. Thank you, Nintendo. I don't need some hardcore guitar riff playing while I'm trying to ace my opponent or perform a sweeping backhand. If I wanted to melt my brain with mindless drivel, I'd become a U2 fan. Finally, as most of us have come to expect from any game created by Nintendo, Super Tennis is cute. This could quite easily be the main reason that this game has become so popular among the masses. It's the little things that you notice. Things like the characters cheering themselves when they play a decent shot, or cursing when they make a mistake. The way that the ball boy runs across to collect a tennis ball off the court, and the cheering crowds. It all makes for such a typical Nintendo cute experience. Now, first of all, let me just say that I feel like a complete ogre bringing the first point up. Picking on a game that is over 20 years old for the way it looks is just so petty. And let's be honest, for 1991, Super Tennis looks pretty good. However, you have to remember that this game was released the year after Super Mario World, and Super Mario World, by contrast, could include things like faces on the characters, which Super Tennis seems to forget about. A lot of the people in the background look too much like scenery and really have no movement about them whatsoever. Granted, I'm clutching at straws, obviously, and it doesn't impact on the gameplay at all, so chances are you may not even notice a lot of these things, as you'll be too wrapped up in the tennis experience. Speaking of gameplay, the game can be a little inconsistent at times. Sometimes you'll play a shot and you'll be called out for it, and other times you can play the exact same shot, the ball lands in exactly the same place, and you aren't called up for it. Computer players can go from being unbeatable to far too easy game by game. You never feel like you're being picked on, as the game is just as inconsistent with some of the computer characters' calls as it is with yours, but it would obviously be much more unnerving to understand each time how the game came to the conclusion that it did, or at least give you some consistency so that you weren't getting quite so frustrated by each call. Now, in-game, there are very few options, and although this may not cause problems for your gaming experience, it does mine, so I felt it only fair to mention it. Every couple of games, the characters switch sides of the court as they would in real life. Fair enough, but I don't like playing on the top court looking down. I just can't do it. So why not give me the option? Would it really be that difficult to include an option that just says whether or not I'm happy playing top looking down? Now, obviously there's not a thing about fairness, because often I'm playing the computer character, and the computer character doesn't care which side it plays on, but I do, because I'm a human and it's a computer, so obviously I'm gonna preference more than it will. So just give me an option not to play on the top part of the court looking down. Instead, the game gives me the also useful choice of what colour tennis ball I want to play with. I don't care! Just let me play on the bottom side of the court looking upwards. Finally, the password system. Look at how ridiculously long this password is. Chances are it is going to take you longer to write this password in than it would to start the circuit mode from scratch and get back to where you were. As a kid, I was never bothered to write down the password. Now, nowadays, I just take a photo of it and save the photo. But in 1991, I had no interest whatsoever in writing down passwords. I wanted to play the game. I didn't want to do writing. Writing was for school. I was at home playing a game. All I wanted to do was play the game. So why should I have to write down a ridiculously long password system? There is absolutely no need for a password system to be this long. As said before, each of the negative points really was clutching at straws. Super Tennis is still one of the best games available on the Super Nintendo, and definitely one of the most fun games that I have ever played on any console. Now, each of the negative points that I've mentioned are completely overshadowed by just how cute and fun Nintendo made this game. It's just so much fun, and it's so adorable, you really will find yourself hooked. There's something for the casual gamer and for the hardcore fan who wants to really go at it and see how far they can get on circuit mode. This game just caters for everybody. A fun, enjoyable experience, Super Tennis serves up an ace of an experience and earns 93% by the Super Nintendo Fanboy. Right, I'm going to break open the champagne and start ogling some short white skirts. However, next time I'll be swapping the strawberries for hamburgers as we get ready for the American Independence Day 4th of July review special, where I'll be reviewing a Super Nintendo game that was only ever released solely in the United States. So, make sure that you tune in next time when we look at a classic Super Nintendo American-only game exclusively for our friends across the pond. Make sure you don't miss it.